Hi everyone, welcome to this short introduction to Azure automation accounts. This video is kind of a prequel to additional videos I'll be making that will show you how we can leverage automation accounts to automate all sorts of tasks in Azure using mainly PowerShell as our scripting language. So this video will be a brief overview focusing mainly on the parts of automation accounts that we will be using and not going over every single feature this service has to offer. This is not an Azure introduction video, so I'm assuming that you already know Azure and have some experience with it. So what is an Azure Automation Account? Automation Accounts is a cloud-based service that provides, among many other things, a way to automate the creation, deployment, monitoring, and maintenance of resources in a consistent and efficient way. They offer features like runbooks, which are essentially scripts that can automate repetitive tasks, and this is the main feature we will be focusing on. Additionally, you can also find configuration management for maintaining consistent configuration across multiple machines, desired state configuration, update management, and more features. We will be going over the process automation and shared resources sections, and we will leverage those in an upcoming more in-depth video. Okay, let's go to the Azure portal and click on our demo automation account. So under process automation, in the runbook section, we can find our runbooks, which are basically our scripts. When we create a new runbook, we are asked to select the type of the runbook, with the available options being PowerShell or Python. We then select the runtime version and can add a description. Once our runbook is created, we can place our code here and publish the runbook. This code will then be executed according to our configuration. This specific code will start a VM for us and output a hello world message when it's completed. Not too sophisticated, but enough for this demonstration. Inside the context of each runbook, we have jobs. These are the individual executions of our runbook. We cannot see any because we never executed the runbook. We will do that later. Schedules, as you may have guessed, allows us to attach a schedule to a runbook, and we can define if we want it to run single time or on a recurrent basis, for example once a week or every Saturday at specific times of the day, etc. With a webhook, we can set up a unique URL where we can call the function using an HTTP request. This can be a good solution if you want an automation that is not based on a schedule but rather on some sort of event that happens and should trigger a runbook. Let's get back to the main automation account section. Under shared resources, we have again schedules. Those are the same ones we saw earlier under runbooks. We can also create them here and reference them inside our runbooks. We also have modules. So modules are essentially PowerShell modules. While we have most of the common Azure-related PowerShell modules already preloaded into our automation account, if we want to, for example, use Graph API authentication to work with Entra ID using PowerShell, we will need to access the gallery and install the module we need. Without that, PowerShell will not recognize the commandlets we are using in our scripts. So again, whether you will need to load additional modules depends on what commandlets you are using in your scripts. Python packages is pretty much the equivalent to PowerShell modules, just in Python. Credentials provides us a secure way of storing and managing usernames and passwords combinations, which we can then reference from inside our runbooks in our code. This is instead of storing them insecurely inside our code. With certificates, we can upload a certificate to our automation account, and we can again reference it from our runbooks for all sorts of uses, with one of them being authentication purposes. And we can also define variables, which again, we will be able to reference them from inside our code in our runbooks. As you can see, we have a pattern here, and this is why we call those shared resources. And finally, the last essential thing we need is the identity part. Our runbooks will be performing all sorts of operations, deleting, creating, modifying Azure resources, so we must have an identity that we can assign the appropriate RBAC role-based access control permissions to, in order for it to perform these specific actions. And we will do that by enabling a managed identity on the automation account and then assigning it an Azure role. For example, if I'd want to have a VM contributor role on a specific resource group, I can achieve it by selecting a resource group as my scope, picking the resource group, and then searching the role I need. When this is done, my runbook will be able to perform the actions permitted them by the assignment or additional assignments. Okay, let's get back to our runbook. So like I mentioned earlier, this is a very simple runbook that will start a VM named spoke1vm and output a hello world message. If we check the status of the VM, we can see it is indeed powered off. This is a super simple script, so in the next video we will do something more interesting and complex, but for now, let's run it by clicking Start. Now when we go to jobs, we can see that the runbook is queued. It will then start, run, and complete, either successfully or not. Once it completes, we can see a completed job in the list. If we click it, we can see information regarding this specific execution of the runbook, which also shows us our output. If we had any errors during execution, we could see them in the errors section. If we go to the VM, we can now see that it is indeed powered on. The jobs under the entire automation account will show us executions of all the runbooks that reside in this specific automation account. So this was a very brief and high-level overview of automation accounts, but this is pretty much what we need for our next video, where we will start building more complex solutions. Hope this was useful and informative, and hope to see you again in the next video.